What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. Welcome back to Voices in the Stands. It's a little bit of a different group this week. We're going to talk with Mike Shaw of the Isthmus and Lakefront Bowls. We're going to talk with our WIAC and MIAA experts. And we're going to talk about some games that we want to watch. We're going to be watching in week 0, and then we're going to send it to Crew to talk to us a little bit about a more in-depth preview of what's going on with UMHB. But let's get right into it. Matt, take it away, you and Mike.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, thanks again for joining us here on episode 2. Appreciate having you on to talk a little bit about the upcoming bowl games. And before we got started, you're a big Division III football nut, so pretty excited to have you on. So I appreciate it.
I am. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I really appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's just start off a little bit. You've told me this story before, but I think it'd be great just to, retell it back to everyone out there around what inspired you to create the Isthmus Bowl and then later on the Lakefront Bowl.
Yeah, really just a love for Division III sports, if I'm being honest. I grew up around Division III sports. I think what throws people off the most is I actually played basketball in college. I didn't play football in college. But I've followed Division III sports very closely, in particular football and basketball. I've always just been a D3 junkie. I really just thought, one day I just thought, what, I'm going to create a bowl game. I just woke up one day and I just said, I'm going to get to work. And it happened like right when COVID started. So it really threw an idea. It was the first idea in my lifetime where I really took it from the beginning to the end. And I had a lot of naysayers throughout the process. And it was the first, like I said, the first idea where I just said, I'm going to pull through with this one. Originally, the conferences did, but the WIAC commissioner retired and they hired a new person. And Danielle Harris was actually the first one to say, Mike, this is a really cool idea. And that's really what kind of inspired me to continue working on it. And then when I got Culver's as the lead sponsor, I wrote a letter to Craig Culver, the founder, one of the lead founders of Culver's. And he wrote me back within 3 days. And that's when the Isthmus Bowl was born. I originally pitched the Lakefront Bowl to the NAC and Midwest Conference at the same time as the Isthmus Bowl. There just wasn't that. They just weren't interested in it yet. And then when they saw the Isthmus Bowl kind of take off in the first year, wanted to kind of jump on board. So now I have 2 bowl games, and they're part of the D3 Midwest Bowl Series. But I keep the bowl games separate. I know there's that Open Door Series where they play both of them at the same site on the same day. I like keeping my bowl games separate so they have separate identities. So that's what really inspired me.
Now, how did you decide on the format for selecting teams for the Isthmus and the Lakefront Bowls? I mean, looking at the runners-up and kind of the third place teams from the WIAC and the CCIW and the NWC and the NAC. I mean, how did you come about, those position or those finishers in that conference?
Yeah, just all done. Was just simple research. As we all know, the NCAA tournament expanded last year for the first time to 40 teams. But originally, when I was doing my research, the only 32 teams, and I think there were only 3 at-large bids at the time. So originally, I pitted the runner-up of each conference to play against each other in my original proposal. But then I added that third place or second place. However, and then it ended up being the best team in each league that doesn't make the NCAA tournament, just because I know there's a couple WIAC experts that are going to be on the call and possibly CCIW as well. Usually those conferences get 2 teams in. So that's where I decided to do where it's the best team that doesn't qualify based on conference standings.
Yeah, I mean, specifically about the Isthmus Bowl, I mean, what does it mean to have 2 quality conferences and teams participating, especially as you were launching, the Isthmus Bowl first before the Lakefront Bowl, started? What did it mean to have the WIAC and CCIW knowing just the level of play, within both conferences to participate?
Yeah, definitely extremely historical leagues. I played basketball played at Platteville, so I know how competitive that league is. My dad played basketball at Carroll back in the 70s, and just two highly competitive leagues. And when I put the two of them together, I thought, usually each conference has that are in the shake for getting all the way to the national title game. It's proven to be that way over the last 15 to 20 years. So I decided to put the two conferences together. Geographically, it makes sense, and then the high quality teams, it just makes a lot of sense to me. CCIW, as you probably know, there's two tremendous teams, and then there's some really good teams in the middle, teams at the bottom that are really trying to just find their identity. And then the WIAC, I mean, the last year, I think there were the top 6 teams. I think all those games were by a touchdown or less. So what it does is the Isthmus Bowl really creates an environment where like every game matters. That's why I love it, because throughout the year I just do all the math and I always get it wrong. Like every prediction is always wrong. And I don't know why that is. Like this year, I know there's a question you're going to ask me later predicting. I get it wrong every year. I was wrong the first 2 years. In fact, my original proposal didn't even include Wash U because I didn't even realize they were in the CCF for football, and they were actually in the bowl game, the Isthmus Bowl, the first 2 years. So
yeah,
that's pretty much why.
I remember, the year Augie came and played the Isthmus Bowl a couple years ago. I mean, you and I were connecting after the Wash U game because for us, that was kind of the pivotal match, as opposed to, does Augie get in or does Wash U get in? And that's a pretty strong predictor. And as we think about right out of the gate, I mean, there's one, maybe two teams from the CCIW that's going to get in, potentially this year. So, it is that second and third place team. So I always say 3rd through 6th is where all the magic happens when we talk about, trying to get
it makes
into
all the
Isthmus
games
Bowl.
matter.
It really does.
It makes all those games matter, the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th game. And in an original year where the Isthmus Bowl isn't in place, those games more matter for pride, but they don't matter much towards like NCAA tournament purposes. But now with this bowl game, it's really exciting. I mean, in the WIC, there's been three-way ties third place the last 3 years. So it really does make, 4 and 3, and then all of a sudden you got to do all the math, and then you got a tie-breaking criteria, and it just makes my head spin. But it's exciting because it makes every game matter. It makes every play matter.
It absolutely does. And, shift gears a little bit, and feel free to share like as much or as little as you're comfortable, but let's talk a little bit about just the behind the scenes, the people needed to organize it, run the event, the sponsorships, and the financial impact, right, that goes into being able to make this thing happen. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's I would say about 6 weeks leading up to each game, it's a second full-time job for me. And I'm being honest when I say that. It's about 40 to 50 hours just due to all the preparation. So I staff both bowl games on my own. And I have a really close friend that I played college basketball with. He does the Lakefront Bowl for me. So I don't get to go to that game. I wish I could be in 2 places at once, but I can't because one of them's in Milwaukee and then one of them's in the Madison area. So I do staff both bowl games. So I do it all. PA announcer, chain gangs, officials, and then all the the game day workers that you see there. So that's probably the most consuming part leading up to the game. But I would say that what I work on the most is the raising of the money. And so I've pretty much have raised all the money on my own through like sponsorship. I've put some of my own money into this. But that's probably the most time consuming part of the year, is raising money so that I can subsidize both of these games. And then I do have a game day reimbursement program, so the schools do get costs reimbursed to them for traveling to and from the events. So I have it based on geography, and I think over the last one bowl game's in its 4th year and the other one's in its 5th year, I think the first 3 years and 4 years of the bowl games respectively, I think I've reimbursed anywhere from 50 to 90% of the cost. So That's a big expense. that's probably the part that I work on the most. But yeah, I'm a one person. I run an LLC. I run all the money through that, and then I run it through. I run both bowl games, and it's super exciting, but it's a lot of work. And I've had some people call me that wanted to start bowl games, and then when I kind of talk about how much work it is and what goes into it, they don't hang up on me, but you can kind of tell by the end of the call that they're like, yeah, maybe this isn't something we want to do. But I'm knee deep in it, and I love it. I still don't know what I'm doing on game day. I run around with like a chicken with my head cut off, but I learn something new every year at the bowl game, and I constantly have gotten really good feedback. But I really just want to continue to get a better experience for all the student athletes, coaches, and fans.
Um, Now, how important is it? Because I know you and I talked about it a lot around, and I'll just take from the Augie experience around how well Augustana travels within the CCIW. How
Mm-hmm.
important is it around just truly attendance for those games? But then you also have the online ticket sales as well to watch. I mean, fan attendance is so important, not just for the atmosphere, but
Yeah.
financially as well. You know, Spread a little insight to that.
Yes. Obviously, I want as many fans as possible. I think as the game continues to grow, there will be more fans. It all depends on the matchup too. That's probably one of the more exciting parts for me is towards the end of the year, you get closer to figuring out who might get into the bowl game. But fan attendance is super important. We do have a pay-per-view live stream that, some D3 fans complain about, but that's okay. I get it. But it does help subsidize the bowl game to continue to, that money does towards, team reimbursement, our banquet, paying the officials towards something really good. Also sell apparel at the game. We do concessions. So there's more revenue streams than just ticketing. But I think what I don't understand is how much work I put into this. I really am never like making money off of this bowl game. It's not, is it profitable? Yes, but not by much. But I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it just for the experience. But I'm hoping I think what really makes a big difference, Matt, is when you get one or two different teams every year. I think that makes a
Hmm.
big difference because then people get to see bowl game actually means. So we've had 6 different teams in the Isthmus Bowl the first 4 years. So we've had 6 teams experience it, and that's if I get just one new team every year, I'm a happy camper because that'll help with attendance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you do a bang up job, and I've had the chance to experience it firsthand. I mean, it's a top notch experience from the Friday night dinner, the speeches that they give, both teams coming together, getting a chance to do the walkthrough, to the actual game, and
Mm-hmm.
everything runs. I'm gonna say smooth from a outside looking in perspective. It's a well
Yeah.
oiled machine after 4 years going into your fifth. Um,
Yep.
and I'll just ask this last question and we'll let you go. Now, this is the fifth year. Are you doing anything special to commemorate year number 5?
Yeah. So we are having. So Brady Ewing played football for the Badgers, and then he played a couple seasons in the NFL. He's going to be our speaker, banquet on Friday night before the game. So that's going to be cool. He's going to talk about life after football, his experience in the NFL, life as a father of 4. Just telling the kids like how special experience is playing college football, and more importantly how special it is at a D3 and how it's just going to lead to so many great things after, because a lot of kids and play in the Isthmus Bowl, especially seniors, it's the last time they put pads on. So that's what he's going to talk about, is life after football. So that's one thing. Another thing is we're actually going to have Culver's food in our VIP tent this year. So that's one of the exciting parts of it. That's going to be a big change. People always ask about that. But Culver's, they don't have like a catering arm yet. It would be amazing, but we're gonna buy food from them and put it in our VIP tent this year. So the sponsors' food will actually be served in the tent. So those
I
are the
love
only
it.
2 changes.
I love it. Well, I'm not going to ask for a prediction. But
I
we'll
have
see how
some, but
the.
I have some, but I try to remain. Both conference commissioners they're wonderful people. I love Danielle. I love Mo. They're great people, but they try to tell me to remain impartial. And it stinks because I played basketball in the WIAC, but I really just
Yep.
love the matchup. And I have my predictions. I've got to keep them to myself, but all I care about, Matt, is if I get at least one or two new teams. If I get a rematch, if the game is as good as it was last year, I'd take a rematch. But I'm really excited to see who gets in this year.
Absolutely. Well, and for those that don't know, I believe you are still the free throw career leader at Platteville,
Oh,
at
jeez.
like 80,
I don't even remember
85%. So a little
Oh,
tidbit for
gosh.
folks out there. So
Yeah,
um,
I'm sure that record. I think they haven't updated their record book. If I'm still the
well, Mike, appreciate jumping on again with us here. Be excited to continue to talk to you, throughout the year, and
Absolutely.
if Augie's that first team out, looking forward to seeing him in action up there again this year. And
Absolutely.
again,
Yeah, would love
just
to
a
have
phenomenal
the
job.
Vikings again. Be great. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Great stuff, guys. I really appreciate both of you. Matt, great questions. Mike Shaw giving us great answers. But shifting gears, let's talk a little bit about our preseason previews. And the first group that we're going to talk to is the WIAC, the Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, and the MIAA, the Michigan Intercollegiate Athletic Association, I believe. And that is Josh and Mike. So go ahead, guys. Take it away.
Mike, I'll let you go first.
All right, sounds good. Starting with our home state here, the WIAC. What I'm really looking forward to this year is return of the best quarterback in the nation in Caleb Blaha out of UW River Falls. They're going to run a really high-powered offense that I know you know well, Josh. You've seen it multiple times now. They're going to run a play every 19 seconds. It's really fun to watch. If you haven't seen UW River Falls play this year, you definitely should. And then a team in Platteville, which won the conference last year, they're losing a ton of production on both sides of the ball. So having them come into this year, I think they're a little bit of a question mark. I don't know if we necessarily know what we're gonna get out of that team. They surprised a lot of people this year, and personally, I'm not sure if they can replicate that exactly. And then just up the state from them is UW La Crosse, who is going to be my favorite to win the league this year. I love what UW La Crosse has this year. They have an experienced quarterback, Kyle Haas. He's a Winona State transfer. They have some absolute dudes up front in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Super experienced, big receivers, an all WIAC running back that comes back this year. I think that they're just a team to beat. I think they could actually run the table in the WIAC this year, which I rarely say. I love that team. Over on your side of the state, what are you seeing, especially with Whitewater? What's the deal with the most famous WIAC school?
Yeah, we had media day this last week on Wednesday, and the question all off season, I think after last year's logjam, finish with the 4-3 teams was what's going to happen at quarterback, because I think that was probably the biggest deficiency of that Whitewater team, and the offensive line. I know going in, they said was going to be a strength and it was going to be better the year before. I don't think that was the case. They're kind of doubling down on that this year, and they've got some guys coming back on the line. That should be a strength. The skill positions, Noah Battle was a pretty good running back. Brian Stanton got injured. There's a lot of turnover in the receiver room. A ton. One of their guys that is coming back was like the fourth or fifth receiver, and now he's a team captain. So they obviously think that he's going to lead that group. They have another receiver who transferred in last year, got out with a shoulder injury. I think defense is, they got guys up front. They lose a lot up front. But Gallagher in the middle is going to be pretty good. He's going to be a team captain. And, one of the freshmen from last year that was really good in the defensive backfield, Paul Kim, he's a Janesville kid, which is where I am, and that's where I call high school football. out of Janesville Parker. He emerged as probably the best defensive back and one of the best upcoming defensive backs. And I'm hoping that he can take the next step. So I think secondary is going to be pretty good. And if they can get things figured out in the rotation, Lucas Sadler's been now going to be a multi-year starter on one of those ends. I think it's all going to kind of hinge on the quarterback position. But as of Wednesday, Coach Rindle was not ready to tell us what happened. We have our first quarterback club show tomorrow, and I'm kind of curious. He said he'll have the 2 deep for me. I was hoping to get it today at some point, but said he'll have that for me in advance of the show. So I'll be really curious who's at the top of that list. I really agree with you on Platteville, and I'm honestly surprised that was the conference's football preseason poll second pick in the conference, with Blaha coming back. That second to last week in the conference season, that matchup with La Crosse and River Falls, probably for the conference title. Oshkosh had a really good young quarterback, Cole Warren, who is from Hononegah, just below the state line. I was really impressed with his poise last year. You had mentioned, I know, Moen up at Stout. I don't know how you can separate, who's at the top between La Crosse, River Falls, and then after that. You might be looking at another logjam. I don't know. Oshkosh was in the driver's seat last year, and they kind of gacked it away. So, but I'm pretty much in agreement with you. It's La Crosse and River Falls, and it may come down to that second to the last week in the conference. So, as far as Whitewater's concerned, I'm not really sure what to expect. I don't know. Do you have any additional thoughts on that?
Well, the way I see, Whitewater as a bit of an outsider, not as plugged into the program as you are, is that's a team that wants to establish the run. They want to be so physical up front, and that's their identity. And I think as the team has evolved here with the new coaching staff, they have to go back to that bread and butter. I just haven't seen enough totally taking over the game, 8-minute drive leading into touchdowns. Whitewater's never been a program that is going to try to beat teams 45-42. That's River Falls. And if they can get back to the bread and butter of, hey, we're going to beat you 27-7, we're going to play great defense, and we're just going to grind the game out, then I think they can get by with having a mediocre quarterback. You can mask a lot of that with an elite running game. And so if they can just really hone in on that again this year and kind of get back to what they were before, that could bode well for them. But I like that you brought up Mr. Warren for UW Oshkosh. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the league. Like you said, super young, coming back this year, really poised in the pocket. He can throw from a bunch of different arm angles. I've seen him throw like some sidearm, like flicks on some crossing routes. Have been pretty impressive. He throws on the run really well. That's a guy that maybe this year he takes the big step, but if not, in another year or two, whatever his eligibility is at, I'm not sure if he did a gray shirt or not, but he, he's a guy that could be a player to watch for, WIAC Player of the Year. I mean, he's that good. He's young, and he needs to develop some. And so that's a team that is dangerous. They were 6-4 last year. There's no reason they couldn't be 8-2. And then talking about Stout with Moen over here, and they have a really good receiver and a defense that's experienced. It's a 6-horse race. And I think, when you get away from those 6 teams and you start looking at the 2 at the bottom that have been there for a while now, people forget that those 2 teams down there, Stevens Point and UW Eau Claire, if you step back from just the WIAC, those 2 schools are really good. I mean, I'd venture to say they would each beat half of the nation's D3 football teams. But they get beat up in the WIAC. So which one of those teams is going to take a step up and knock somebody off? When I played for UW Eau Claire just recently, I was a member of a team that beat the brakes off of Oshkosh, beat the brakes out of Platteville, took down St. Thomas. And I don't think UW Eau Claire is that far away from making that type of upset again. And that will make the whole league, elevate the entire league if these 2 teams can get in position where they're affecting things at the top.
Yeah, I know they got 8 starters coming back on defense, only 4 on offense. Stevens Point, we're headed up there, and I know they're really trying to get things off the ground. I haven't seen a look at their roster. They got a couple of local kids from around this area over in the county that are headed up to play and that have gotten offers from Coach Vinay. So point granted, not all that good last year in the conference, as you had mentioned, but they have a total of 16 starters returning on both sides of the ball, plus one of their specialists. So, if those guys can take the leap, that would be impressive, because I think nobody wants to go as winless or as long as Stevens Point has in the conference, and I just like to start seeing them competitive in some of the games. And as down a year as Whitewater had, they ran the opening kickback and just absolutely pummeled them from the opening whistle last year. So there's a big discrepancy in the top teams, as you had mentioned, and those bottom two. I'd really be interested to see if the Blue Golds can take a step forward. I think that would make things a little more interesting. One more note on Stout, and I know we had mentioned in our episode last week, offensive coordinator there went to La Crosse. Whitewater's offensive coordinator, one of the co-offensive coordinators who was let go after the season, went back to Stout, where he had come from, down to Whitewater. I'll be interested to see if that has any impact on their offense coming in, because I know he did some great things a couple of years ago when he was with the Warhawks. Things kind of took a step back last year for, probably a multitude of reasons, but I'll be interested to see how that affects Stout and Moen coming back, and how explosive that offense is, because we left that stadium absolutely shell-shocked last year early on in the season, and that kind of set the table for kind of a below average Whitewater year.
Yeah, no doubt. Carlo, anything that you'd want to throw in as the host of this show on our league up here?
Yeah. So, Josh, I have a question. If this season is below the par for Whitewater, does that put Coach Rendall on the hot seat? Are we talking that this could be we could be talking about a vacancy come the end of the season if it ends up with another log jam and Whitewater finds themselves at 4 or 5 in the conference?
One of his statements that he says from week to week is the standard is the standard. And one of the things that I'm going to ask him in the show tomorrow night is, okay, is the standard to add to the conference championship number at the top of the stadium? Is the standard to add to the national championship number at the stadium? He was National Player of the Year in D3. So, okay, what standard are we talking about? Are we looking to win conference titles? Are we looking to win national titles? I would say the seat is warm right now, but probably not hot. But I think, 500 and above, it depends how far that is, but definitely you got to make a run for the conference championship, if not finish right below. And you got to be at least in the mix for the playoffs, or at least going to the Isthmus Bowl. Having nothing at the end of last year was, like I said, it's almost as jarring as the Stout loss. It was like, okay, at the end of the year, I guess we're done. And I don't know that that's going to sit well if there's a replica of that.
And then, Mike, my question is over in the, not so much a WIAC question, but an MIAA question. Is it Hope's league now, or should people remember that Alma is also in that league, correct?
Yeah, correct. Let's talk some Michigan quick. Alma is, in my opinion, Alma is kind of the outside face of this league, where when fans think of the MIAA, they think of Alma. They think of that Scottish big A. And but this year, I'm with you, Carlo. I think you might have been insinuating it there. I think this is Hope's league to lose, and that's just super exciting for anyone who loves Division III football. That's not to take anything away from Alma. I think if you step back again and you look at the MIAA as a conference in the last 6 or 7 years, there's very few conferences, if any, that have risen in the power rankings as high as they have in that amount of time. They went from a conference that was basically usually a pushover. As soon as they would get in the playoffs and they'd play someone who was, a top 25 level team, they would go down. now, I mean, this is a conference that's expecting their champion or even their runner-up this year to be playing in the Elite Eight, the Final Four. Like, they are that good. So, yeah, this is an exciting time to be a part of that league and follow that league. Plus, they just got a new member, as you know, Carlo, entering in their second season, I believe. So that's always really fun to watch for any conference.
And, that kind of leads to my transition. I wanted to ask both of you that question to ask this question of the group leading into our week 0 conversation. Couple of games that I'm watching this week. Obviously, there's 2 PAC games that I'm really going to focus on. I don't want to talk about them right away, but the game that I think everybody's going to be watching is round 2. Blaha versus Carter St. John, Alma River Falls, round 2. What are we expecting in that game, given that last year it was kind of a River Falls early, but Alma did what Alma does and put themselves in position to really almost take that game. What are you guys thinking?
Josh?
I mean, I don't know much about Alma, just being, having to work mostly prepping for high school stuff. And like I've said right from the jump, my WIAC knowledge is still in its infancy and still growing. But if River Falls is going to be the team that is going to jump to the top, I mean, picked to finish 3rd in the WIAC, you got to win this one. You got to make a strong opening statement, right? And I think you got to get through it, first of all, by showing that your quarterback is going to be healthy and dynamic for the season and have no signs of any injuries or rust or anything, because you can't afford that in this game, right? With this big of an opponent in week 1. So you got to be ready. You got to come out and if you want to be that team this year as the face of this conference, you got to do it. Will that exactly mean it's going to happen? I have no idea. I hope it does, because that speaks well for us, right?
Yeah, this is one of those marquee matchups, one of the best matchups in the country week 1. And, Carter St. John, the quarterback of Alma, and Caleb Blaha, like we talked about, this might be the best 2 quarterbacks in the entire country going at it in week 1. We do not get that very often. It's a really special matchup. I think if you look back last year, like you talked about, Carlo, huge halftime deficit. It was like 35-0 or 35-7 at one point. I think, when you play UW River Falls and you see their system and how fast-paced it is, you get shocked. You can't prepare for that. There's no scout team in America that can prepare you for that. But now Alma's they're not going to be caught off guard by that. I mean, it's just not going to happen. They know what to expect. So I expect a much closer game. I'm not sure what Logan Hansen has the spread on this, but this feels like it's an under touchdown type game, like down to the wire. Who has the ball last? Could be super high scoring. I think UW River Falls pulls it out, but it's going to be super close. Alma should be getting votes after this week if they take them to the wire.
Right. Now, so the other 2 games that I plan on watching, and I'm going to open it up to everybody else, see what other games we're going to be watching this week. Marietta, Westminster, it's a rematch of the Extra Points Bowl game. Marietta, very interesting. Their coach moves on. They have a new coach looking to improve off of the best season in recent history for them. They're, John Carroll out of the conference. They're in the OAC. Does that mean Marietta is now the 2nd best team in that conference? Are they the ones that they played a hell of a game against Mount Union a year ago? So that's an interesting thing. I think Westminster really poised from a lot of people that I'm talking to, and a lot of people around the PAC. They think that Westminster maybe takes the jump this year now with Carnegie Mellon leaving the conference, and there's kind of a 3-headed monster at the top of the PAC with, Grove City, W&J, and Westminster. That leads me into the other game that I'm watching, which is Grove City and Cortland. Grove City's going to travel up to Cortland this week. Next week they'll go to Mount Union, and then they open PAC play with W&J. We've talked about some gauntlet schedules amongst ourselves, but this is another one. New coach in Cortland, new starting quarterback in Cortland. Grove City loses to Cortland by 1 in 2023, leading to Cortland going on to win the national title. I mean, there's a lot of things there. Coach DiDonato seems to have the machine really rolling up there in Grove City. So those are the games that I'm watching. I want to talk to Matt first. what game are you watching this week?
Well, I'm watching Augie, Carlo. I mean, they're at Simpson, so that's a given, though, right? But there's a couple of other
Yeah,
games.
I didn't throw my Bethany game out there, Matt. I didn't throw that. I was also going to be watching Bethany and Swansea.
Yes.
I didn't throw that out there because I thought it was assumed.
Well, I mean, I'm excited for a couple reasons, just from an Augustana perspective. We have that Illinois State transfer quarterback coming in, Jimmy McCoo. We have a handful of others as well that have transferred in. I actually drove up to Dubuque last night to watch them scrimmage Loris, and again, like everything, right? Like very high on what I saw there. Loris, they're a mid-tier team, right? At the end of the day, but I thought Augie played them as if they were a mid-tier team. And just in terms of, you could see the drastic in, number ones versus number twos. So that was awesome. They did great. Now, the one I am interested in watching is Carroll versus Eau Claire. I think that'll be a really nice CCIW WIAC matchup there. I mean, Carroll opened with that stout win last year, so I'm curious to see how they, go up against Schultz, Wisconsin Eau Claire team there. I'm excited to see that. I think Carroll is built, to play, WIAC teams pretty well. So, but with Augie playing Simpson in the ARC, I'm really also interested in watching Illinois Wesleyan play Central, because we talked about in episode 1 around the team to watch, right? It's like, you have Wartburg, Co, and Central could make a pretty good leap there. So I think it'd be interesting to see how, Wesleyan's, put together some better seasons here as of late. Very talented team. Curious to see how they match up against Central. But then, I mean, then you've got number 2 Mount Union hosting number 17 Wheaton. Augie plays Wheaton in week 1 of CCIW play. So, I want to see where those two teams stack up, and gives you a really good good measuring stick, right, as we go into our first home game that I'll be announcing for the Vikings. So a lot of good games this week. A lot of good games.
Right.
Excited to be back.
And then, crew, obviously, I would assume that you're going to be watching the UMHB Bethel game. Are there any other games that you have on your radar that you'll be checking out this week?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I'll be at that one. Me and my dad are going to go. I already got my wife on the hook for watching the kiddos, so we'll definitely be at that one. Some other games, yeah. I mean, Mount Union, Wheaton, obviously that's one I had written down for sure. I mean, I think the D3 world will definitely have their eyes on that one. I want to see Platteville and Aurora. Aurora, I don't know what it is, but like I've just found myself totally fascinated with their program. Coach Don Beebe, everybody knows who that is. He's running the program there, doing a really good job. I really like their quarterback. Tyler Atkins is back. I made sure he was back. That's what makes, is this week 0 or week 1? No, it is week 0, right? Technically?
Right. Technically.
Yeah, so that's part of what makes, even looking at which games you're going to like, or even looking at which games you want to see so tough is, half the teams don't have rosters out, and the transfer portal has just been nuts. Aurora is one of those teams that I think, they had 2 11-win seasons. Last year we're down just a little bit. Still good though, but they were kind of ravaged by the transfer portal going into 2024. And I think that's a team, among some others that we can talk about, has kind of figured it out and kind of bounced back. And now they're using the transfer portal to their benefit instead of, getting scalped. I think Aurora is primed for a bounce back season. And look, 9 wins is not a bad season, right? But they two straight years with 11 wins. So I think they get back to that and maybe even better. Only other game I had written down was Oshkosh and Linfield. Linfield, we're pretty familiar with them here in Texas. They're kind of on their own island, right? So, and we played each other a lot. It's a rivalry. I mean, it's kind of an under the radar rivalry, but we've played each other so much. Our whole 2016 to 2021 run was predicated on finally getting over the hump and beating that Linfield program in Belton. We could not beat those guys. They even, dating back to 2004, they beat us in the national title. And, fast forward to 2015, we go up there in the playoffs, blow a big lead, and they walk it off with a game-winning field goal. We finally got over the hump in 2016. Really nice win at home to kick off that season, and the rest is history, right? But those are probably the games I'm keeping an eye on for the most part, and some of the other ones you guys already mentioned.
And then, does anybody else have a game that nobody mentioned that they'll be watching? Josh, Mikey, anybody? I have another one to call back. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'd go with Johns Hopkins and Ithaca. Expectations are crazy high for Johns Hopkins this year. Maybe the highest expectations that they've had, at least from the outside D3 world in quite a while, where they're kind of in national championship buzz. And then a kind of a sleeper pick for me is Susquehanna and Union. Susquehanna, last time we saw them, they just got absolutely demolished by North Central. This is a team that I love. I love their offense. But Union, is kind of a team that predicates themselves on playing excellent defense, super physical. So it'll be interesting to see how their high-powered offense goes into a team that is just outside the top 25 that plays really good defense. That's a quality matchup. I'll be watching those two.
Carlo,
Josh?
the other one. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead,
I mean, I'm going to be calling Whitewater and Carleton. I'm really curious to see, because then we jump down to St. Xavier. So opening the season, calling the game for the Warhawks, I'm not going to get a chance. I was going to watch, Claire and Carroll on Thursday night. I got a high school game that night, and then Saturday I might take in a little bit of the St. John's or Bethel games, just if I can, find a spare moment around watching, D1 football. But wrapped up with Whitewater, I'm not going to get a chance to see too much else.
Right. Matt?
Yeah, I think the other one is, really worth noting, right, is number 9 Wartburg playing Monmouth. Monmouth is a physical team. I mean, they finished 8-3 last year, and they lost 24-38 to Wartburg last year. So, it's a nice rematch for them there. Monmouth likes to be physical. So I think that would be another fun one to watch. If you think about, I don't think necessarily think it's an upset by any chance, but it could be a lot closer game than a 38-24, last year. So one to keep an eye on.
Right. All right. And then wrapping up today, this week's segment, Crew, we're gonna go to you, and we want to hear. I sent you a couple questions about UMHB that I personally had. Just thought they would be good talking points. But in general, what are we thinking for the season? Now, you've seen 2 scrimmages now, correct?
I went to the first one. Got some pretty good insight on the second one.
So let's hear it. Talk to us about UMHB.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. It's been definitely a kind of a not too much of a change, but I mean, I don't know what else you can call it when you have the same head coach for 20 plus years, and then you get a new one. Even though Coach Harmon obviously was with the program for a long time, it was always going to be a little bit of a transition. But this year, I would say I'm probably the most optimistic I've been so far in Coach Harmon's. Last year, we seemed to gel and put it together for the playoffs. Defense was playing as good as any of our championship teams have played, really ever. Last year was the offense that struggled. It was not for a lot. We lost our wide receiver one, starting tight end, and starting slot receiver to Division I programs in the portal. So we obviously had talent. Got a new offensive coordinator this year. Coach Lee returns. He was here from 16 to 21. Helped us win 3 national titles. So great to have him back. The other position that has been a big talking point has been the quarterback position, because we've done so much to make sure that we have a good quarterback this season. We've brought in multiple big-time transfers. Kirkland Michaud from Illinois came in. We brought in a kid named Seth Mauser from UTEP. Also brought in a kid that was a walk-on in Oklahoma and then played at Tulsa. He came in. He's injured. And then, of course, you got Jake Wright, who was the starter last year. He's back. As of now, from what I'm hearing, it looks like Michaud, the kid from Illinois, and Seth Mauser are kind of battling for QB1, maybe a slight lean to Michaud as far as getting the keys to the car. Both of those guys are really, really good quarterbacks. Michaud is a 6'5", kind of a pocket passer, but will surprise you with his speed. Mauser is younger. He has like 3 years of eligibility left. He played a year at junior college after he left UTEP. And he's a specimen. He's 6'6", crazy athlete, crazy arm strength. So we're kind of in a position in the quarterback room where I think it's going to work out for us this year, one way or the other, which is really nice because I expect the defense to reload with Coach Harmon. We almost always have a good defense with Coach Harmon. That's kind of his thing. He knows his scheme. He knows the players he wants. Whole secondary's back. Edge players are back. We just kind of looking to shore up, or maybe not shore up, but find the right guys in the interior defensive line and at the linebacker positions. But yeah, I'm pretty optimistic.
And then what are the expectations, and obviously out of the optimism, what are the expectations with, Hardin Simmons last year? They had your guys' number. What are we looking at between that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it in the first show. I think they've beaten us 3 out of our last 4 matchups, which for a long time it was a one-sided rivalry. Not really the case anymore, but we did get the best of them in the playoffs, which I'm sorry, like I really, not that I really have any, feelings of love for Hardin Simmons, but I'm not trying to be ugly. It's got to suck finally getting over the hump or beating a team that usually beats you and then losing to them in the playoffs. And that's what happened last year, for Hardin Simmons. So it's, definitely no love lost there. The rivalry is as good as ever, and we get to play them twice again this year because of the round robin situation in the American Southwest Conference. That goes away next year, thank goodness. But yeah, no, it's definitely a rivalry is as tense as ever.
And then what's your expectations for Mary Hardin Baylor Bethel Tennessee this week?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. I think Bethel, last year we played them in Tennessee. They were a top 10 team, lost 20-10, just couldn't get any offense going, just no offense whatsoever. We had a couple different quarterbacks get an opportunity for us last year. And at that point in the season, we just could not get anything going. Defense looked good. Like I said, defense was not really the issue last year. I think Bethel even may have had a defensive touchdown in that game. So just couldn't quite get it going. This season, I'm, again, more optimistic. I think it's a great game to open the season with because there's a little bit of a revenge aspect behind it. First game of the year, the Crusader Stadium will definitely be rocking. It's a night game. I don't want to say it's quite a hornet's nest because it's not really a team that we're that well acquainted with, not really like a regular season rival. This will only be the second time we've ever seen Bethel, Tennessee. But I do think a little bit of that revenge factor will come into play. We're a lot more capable this season offensively. I expect to win that game, to be honest with you.
All right. And then I know that you still have 6 minutes, so I'm gonna launch a little bit of a new segment. We're gonna call this the final word, and I'm gonna give you the final word to start, and we'll move on to everybody else. Give them a chance to. But go ahead, crew. Final word.
Yeah. I guess we're going to learn a lot this week about a lot of teams. That's probably my favorite part about week 0. Again, we don't know everything, or we don't know much, especially at the Division III level. There's not really many magazines you can go get at Barnes & Noble about, your Division III teams. So you do the homework yourself, and even when you try to do that, like I said, rosters aren't always up until the game notes come out. So really excited to just see new faces and see who steps up and kind of emerges from the teams that we don't necessarily expect to emerge. Yeah, super excited.
Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested just to see, obviously, Augie in game 1, and I was going back and forth with D3 data, on X around really trying to understand, is there a way to see D1 transfers into a Division III program and statistically, seeing their impact to a program is somewhat like a baseline around, are there like, their replacement value to who was in that role before, does it continue to rise? So we were going really back and forth and just how manual it'd have to be, because the NC2A site isn't great to just pull in, from a transfer perspective. You really have to go like individual by individual, team by team. Nobody has time for that. But so, I'm really interested to see, some of the impact around these Division I players that are transferring into Division III, and just seeing what type of impact they do have. Not just for the Augustana program, but just programs, generally kind of across the country, as we look at this year. So excited we're back. Excited we're back. That's all I can say. I was texting parents all night last night, some that were in Texas and couldn't come to the scrimmage, obviously. What was going on, sending videos and things like that. So just the general excitement between parents and players, and it was so great to be back last night.
Right. Josh?
I think for me, it's cautious optimism, right? That will be the phrase for Whitewater this year. Lot to do at quarterback. Our rushing statistics last year, I know, as Mike mentioned, getting back to pounding the rock, right? That's the mantra, and that's always been the mantra. And we did it last year, or they did it. The statistics were good. The dominance was not there as it had been in years past. There's a lot of big dudes. There's a lot of physical dudes. There's a couple of really fast guys as well. The skill positions, the receivers, the tight end depth, the up back, they lost a lot of good guys that made big plays on an offense that was probably pretty average, right? So, you want that offense to get back to the level that you can have to score a ton of points and still rely on that defense to, really knock the snot out of opponents. Carleton last year didn't run for a whole lot, maybe 70 yards a game. I think they got a quarterback coming back who's a 3-year starter. They're one of their top wideouts is coming back. I'm just really anxious to get going, but Perkins Stadium's a really hard place to win a game. A couple of WIAC teams did it last year. So cautious optimism for me, and it starts in week 1. Can you be able to tell a lot from week 1? I don't know. It's a lot like the NFL, a lot like the major Division I college. Let's just relax after week 1, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
Mikey?
Yeah, just like these guys all said, excited. We don't know what we're gonna get, but wherever you're listening to this from, go to a game. There's probably a game near you. This is the largest division in NCAA. Get to a game, enjoy the good weather. We got like a month and a half of like super good weather football here where you can be outside and be comfortable. So get to a game, enjoy it. I hope to go to 2 this week, and I'm just keep my fingers crossed for close games for all you guys. Have some fun.
Right. And then my only thing is Matt kind of hit the excitement on the head when he got a little too excited there, and I almost thought he was going to punch his microphone for a second. But it's just nice to have football back, and wherever you're watching from, like Mikey said, go out, get to a game if you can. Crew, I'm really glad to see that you didn't pull the greatest freeze poker face of all time at the end of this episode, because last week I really had tried to have a conversation and everybody went, yeah, I think he dipped, man. Good luck, though. So it's been a really great time. It's been a great week. Obviously, we'll be back next week, same time, different group maybe, and we'll be back next week, Chuckleheads.